Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flach.
But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." That is 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, and I'm your host, Sandra Flach. Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, where you will find encouragement, resources, and community for your unique parenting journey. I am a mom of 8, 5 through adoption, including 2 sons who are now 20 and 22. Both were diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome when they were little, trauma, all of the things. So I understand the difficulties parents face when raising children with all of these things, with prenatal substance exposure and trauma. I've been on this journey for 25 years. I'm still on this journey. I'm still parenting. Our boys are still at home. So I'm here to walk with you through it. In fact, I want to share some upcoming online workshops to better equip you for your parenting journey. Coming up on June 9th at noon Eastern Time, I'm offering From Frustration to Understanding, Brain-Based Strategies for Parenting Children Impacted by Trauma and Prenatal Exposure. This is a free 1-hour workshop, and it's introductory. So possibly once you take that workshop, you may realize you want a little bit more. So that one is offered on June 9th. And then the little bit more, I'm offering a 3-hour webinar on June 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And this one is called Wired Differently. And it is a 3-hour deep dive into fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, which really FASD affects 1 in 20 people, 1 in 20 children in the United States. It's more prevalent than autism. It's more prevalent even in the foster and adoption community, but not just there. We all know at least one person with FASD, whether we realize it or not, whether they realize it or not. So especially parenting kids from hard places, FASD is highly prevalent, not known, not understood, often not diagnosed, misdiagnosed. So the free 1 hour on June 9th will sort of give you a little bit of a glimpse into that, but really it's for any parenting situation, whether it's trauma, autism, FASD, ADHD, any of the things. It's a great place to start. And then if you recognize, oh my goodness, FASD may be something that we need to look closer at, the June 24th workshop, Wired Differently, is definitely going to be where you'll want to go next. So there's a link in the show notes where you can go to register for these or any of the workshops that I offer. Also, be sure to grab a copy of my newest book, Soul Care Saturday, 52 Devotions for Foster and Adoptive Moms. It is available on Amazon. The amazing Jamie Finn from Foster the Family wrote the foreword. She was so kind and generous to pre-read the book and write that foreword. This is a devotional just for us busy foster and adoptive moms. There's 52 devotions. They each have a scripture. There's a breath prayer to practice each week. There's a journaling page, additional scriptures if you want to go a little bit deeper throughout the week. It's filled with just beautiful illustrations designed to minister to your heart and refresh your spirit. So I hope you will check that out. And if you have gotten the book, whether you got it at one of the conferences I've been at, or you've gotten it on Amazon, or somebody gave you a copy as a gift, please go into your Amazon account and go to the book and leave a review. That's a huge blessing. Anytime you read a book by any author that you love the book, leave them a review. It is such a gift to the author. So enough about that. Keep in mind, I would love to connect with you in person. I will be in September at the Christian Alliance for Orphans conference in Atlanta, Georgia. That's September 23rd through 25th. And I will be at Replanted in Chicago, October 15th through 17th. I have room on my calendar for your event. So if your church, if your adoption and foster care ministry group, maybe you work for an agency or an organization that serves parents, foster and adoptive parents, maybe you're planning a retreat for foster or and adopted moms, whatever you're planning. If you are interested in having me come and speak, whether in person or virtually, please reach out to me because I would love to share at your event, whether it be focused specifically on FASD or we do more of a soul care ministry to moms approach. Whatever you need, reach out to me and we'll see what we can do. I would love to serve you. So my direct email, Sandra Flach at justicefororphansny.org, is in the show notes. So you can click on that, email me. I love hearing from you, even if you just want to leave me an email and let me know what this podcast means to you, or maybe there's a topic you would like me to cover. Maybe there's a guest you would like to have me interview. Love to hear from you. This is your podcast. When I come on and begin to record, my prayer is that God would serve you through this podcast, that you would be served, your time would be, because to me, your time is valuable. I know because I am also an adopted mom, and I just want this podcast to be exactly what you need it to be. And I take that very seriously. So, and I love to hear from you, to know what it is you need, what it is you're looking for, and how I can best serve you. So reach out to me. Would love to hear from you. Now, today, we are wrapping up National Foster Care Month, and we have a special guest with us, Reuben Watson. Reuben serves as the Director of Unity in Action at the Lexington Leadership Foundation, where he works to support families and address the child welfare crisis across Kentucky. A graduate of Eastern Kentucky University with a degree in communication studies, he is passionate about community engagement, mentorship, and empowering others through collaboration and hope. Drawing from his own experiences overcoming adversity, Reuben uses his story to inspire resilience, healing, and renewal in the lives of children, families, and communities. He believes in creating pathways for people of faith and goodwill to take steps toward the renewal of our city. Please welcome to the show, Reuben Watson. Hey, Reuben, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. We met in person back in April at Mobilize, Ohio. You were speaking and I got to meet you there, and so excited now for our listeners to get to meet you. You have an incredible testimony, so I would love to start there. Would you share your story with us? Take us back to how you entered foster care, why you entered. Take us back to that time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the invitation to be able to speak and be able to share my story. It is a great gift to be able to walk alongside you in the ministry that you have, and how you're serving and loving the community well. I'm thankful we could make this happen. For me, it's not just the idea of sharing my story, but I'm getting to relive the victory in my life. And so thank you for the gift that I have received today, and getting to honor the Lord with aspects of my life that were challenging and difficult, that were meant for harm, but now can be used for His glory and for His good. And so thank you for that. And I'm excited to be able to be on with you today. And hopefully it not only breathes life into those who are listening, but also makes an impact and a ripple effect with the kids and the families that they are serving.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to have you share your story. We met in back in April at Mobilize, Ohio, where you were speaking, and now I'm thrilled to bring your story to our listeners who are primarily foster and adoptive parents. And I know whenever we hear, the testimony of an individual who grew up in foster care, who was adopted, and we see how they're thriving, serving the Lord, it's such an encouragement to our hearts. So Reuben, would you share your story? Take us back to how and why you entered foster care and what that time was like for you.
Absolutely. Well, for me in my life, there was a simple theme, a simple question of who did I belong to and did I have matter or worth? And there was a calling on my life I didn't realize at the time that was saying you are mine. As a child, this theme of not belonging started very early, not feeling I mattered. My biological mother gave me up for adoption when I was first born, and that started this theme of being passed from home to home, place to place. Because soon after she gave me up, the family that was going to adopt me had to give me back because my biological mother had decided she didn't want to go through the adoption. Very early on, at no fault of her own, my biological mother, she was a paranoid schizophrenic and struggled with bipolar disease and a few other mental health struggles within her life. And there were challenges that came with that. As a result of things that she was walking through, I began dealing with abuse and neglect at a very young age. And there were parts of my life and my story that were difficult because I wasn't sure why I wasn't loved in the way that I saw others being loved, why I wasn't cared for in the ways that others saw others being cared for. And as a result of that abuse and neglect that I went through, I could tell by how my mother shut the door when she got home to our apartment, uh, how many layers of clothes I needed to put on. I could tell by her steps down the hallway what it meant for me to try to run away or try to hide. There were multiple times where I had to break into her room to steal food, which is even hard to say as a child, but to eat it was necessary. Um, by the age of 8, I had attempted suicide twice.
Mm.
Had arrived in a place in which I said, if the one person that was supposed to love me and care for me did not do so, then how could I belong to anyone? What is the point of living? My mom, just because of the life that she experienced, she never even tried to save me either one of my suicide attempts. It was my biological sister who broke down those doors and decided to save me and chose to save me. And so that started and continued the same theme of do I matter? Do I belong? What is it that I can do? And I was placed in the foster care system. I went to 14 different foster homes. I had multiple stays in mental hospitals. I had multiple stays in crisis units, and I stayed in a children's home for 2 years. I had a controlled chaos, I guess you could say. For me, it meant if I was able to put other people in chaos, I thrived in that space. And so, as long as I felt safe, that's all that mattered. And that continued the same theme of I don't belong to anyone, I don't matter to anyone, but what I'm going to do is choose to love and myself in the best way that I could while causing destruction so that other people would not be able to hurt me. If I hurt you first, you couldn't hurt me. And that same theme and idea continued during those 2 years in the children's home, self-sabotaging, not feeling like I wanted to have progress. I wanted to stay in a place where I thought was comfortable. I remember being in that place and getting to have positive experiences with staff that I had never seen before, and I got to have positive experience with people that I never had a chance to interact with before. I remember going to the barbershop and getting my hair cut, and I remember being able to have snacks and all these things that I did not have as a child. But this entire time, there was something that was happening behind the scenes. Once again, that theme of "you are mine" was not something I believed at the moment. I did not think I had a place of belonging. But because I was had this stability within this children's home, there was a family that was pursuing me, the Watsons. So technically, I have two last names. My name is Reuben Rawlings Watson. Rawlings is my biological name. Watson is my adopted name. So that family, my mom and my dad had my biological sister, and she asked them to find me. And so they found me at this children's home. And not only did they pursue me with reckless abandonment, um, but they gave me stability and home and love. And one of the unique things that happened for me, not only was I reconnected with my sister, but in the midst of my normal spiral, self-sabotage, and chaos, there was a time frame where my mom had to discipline me lovingly. Anyone who is a parent knows what that means. Uh, and there was a time frame where I was like, I'm going to go play in this basketball tournament. It was for district tournament, and my mom said, "You're not playing because of my behavior." And so I lost it. It then became, I'm going to be chaotic. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to lash out. I'm going to do all these things. And I was like, send me back to the boys' home. I don't want to be here. I don't need to be here. And she looked at me in the midst of my chaos, although she was very upset and hurt and angry. And I remember her looking at me and saying, Reuben, you are my son. And there's nothing that you can do. There's nowhere you're going to go. This is your home. And that memory is something that has been burned into my mind. With despite the fact all there's years of my life that I do not remember because of trauma, that memory is one that has stayed with me because that was the first time that I had an adult and a parent in the midst of my chaos choose me. Little did I know, as I got adopted later on, that was a foreshadowing for greater adoption to come. I came to know the Lord the end of my first semester of college, and fast forward to where we're getting to do what my life is now. I now have the great gift of getting to utilize that story and utilizing that pain and trauma that I experienced to make an impact in others' lives now, because of what the Lord has brought me through, and not only adopted me into the Watson family but adopted me into his family through the blood of Jesus, that now I'm able to utilize those scars and the thorn in my side through different things to be a reminder of the grace and weakness and the strength that I can find in that through him. Through the grace of God, miraculously, I've been married 12 years, just celebrated a couple weeks ago. And I've got two beautiful babies, two beautiful girls that are just reminders of the grace that's been shown to me. And so that is what my life has been like. And being able to now serve in the space of foster care and serve in the space of partnership and unifying the community around serving and loving others is the greatest gift I've ever received.
I love a redemption story, and yours is certainly exactly that, Ruben. So you gave us the big picture, and now I want to kind of dig in a little bit deep because I just love, love this story. And so, how old were you? Because I'm not sure if I caught if you said it, when you met the Watsons, when they came and took you home.
Yeah. So I technically met the Watsons prior to them taking me home. I remember just like it was yesterday, I was in a crisis unit and there was a tornado hailstorm happening outside. And I remember I hadn't seen my sister in maybe 3 years. And she came to the crisis unit that I was staying in. And so I got to see her for the first time in a few years. I didn't know who the Watsons were at the time. They were just the people that brought her there. But they kept chasing me. I had 3 to 4 different caseworkers during this time frame, and so they kept pursuing me. But then no one knew where I was at. And so when they actually ended up catching up with me, I was able to go and the Watsons found me in that children's home because I was there for so long. It provided stability, and so they weren't chasing me from place to place, and they were able to find me.
And so they were coming to visit you in the children's home. Is that
Yeah,
right?
so
Yeah.
I was in the children's home because no other family would take me in. That's the place that I had arrived at. My list of I don't want to say offenses, but for lack of better words, the list of offenses, the impact that I was making had left me with a long, long sheet of trauma and things that I had caused in other homes out of self-sabotage, and so no one wanted to take me in. And there was a grace in that because they gave me stability there. So I went into foster care at the age of 8, and then I was adopted at the age of around 16.
Wow, that's just incredible. Um, when I heard you speak in Ohio, you described your adoptive parents and your home. So would you kind of give us a glimpse into what the Watsons were like, what that home was like for you, going from all of those years being bounced around, and then the children's home, and now you arrive at the Watson home?
Yeah, I love my parents. I adore them. And cultural differences is what I would say. Coming from Louisville, Kentucky, or Louisville, Kentucky, where for those who may not know, it's where the Kentucky Derby is ran. It's city life, so it's a little different. Most of Kentucky is rural and experience, and the Watsons are no different than that. So my parents And where I grew up later on in life was a 200-acre goat farm out in Western Kentucky. And so my parents couldn't have been any more culturally different from me. My parents, if for those who are listening, my parents, if you were to paint a picture of them, they look very much in their younger years like the the Warhol picture of the lady with the pitchfork and the husband with the pitchfork in front of a barn. That is a perfect description of my parents. They are the sweetest, kindest people that I know. My dad is has a almost a calming peace about him. He's a man of few words, but he's a man of few words because he holds on to them and utilizes them and shares as needed. He really has a booming voice, almost something like behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz, with how he speaks, but he commands respect and loves and serves so well. And my mom. She is the opposite. She will tell you what she thinks and how she thinks, and that is what makes them such a perfect blend. But she's a woman of compassion. The home that I grew up in, I was the last of the foster kids, technically, but I grew up in a house of five guys because they were guys who were just in the community that needed a place to live that became my brothers. And so, although they weren't in the foster care system, we were all family. Their kids are my nieces and nephews, and same for mine. They are they're their uncles. And so to be able to be in that place, that was the home we lived in. That meant spending a lot of time outside, flipping hay bales, doing a lot of fishing, and a lot of things that my mom would say, "Don't do it in here, just go outside." And so that was the life that I experienced, which was a great gift.
I love that. So, did they adopt your sister too?
Did not. My sister is 5 years older than me, so by the time that I got into the home, she was getting ready to graduate high school. But I can tell you, my sister lives in the same hometown. I can tell you that my sister, Thanksgiving, Christmas, any holiday, how she learned how to drive, all the above, all came from the Watsons. So although she wasn't adopted, that's mom and dad for her as well. And it's a beautiful story once again of redemption coming from different places to be in a place like Bucksville, Kentucky, is where I'm from.
Wow. So was it, Ruben, what was that adjustment like going from not just all of the chaos in your early years, but then being in the children's home for 2 years, and now you're in a family on a goat farm, right? What was that adjustment like for you?
Extreme in transition. So I remember having fear of silence
Mm.
coming from used to chaos and things that were happening. And I remember when I would be laying in bed thinking, someone's going to get me out here because there was just wind, or you could just hear the animals outside, but you heard no sirens, you heard no vehicles. My driveway to my parents' house is a mile long, and so you're not seeing anything. Um, and there was a almost a purging, I'll be honest with you, of sensory overload that I had needed. And there was the idea of what hard work looked like. I hadn't really experienced that in that way, in the way that I understood. And so the transition going from place to place to a place not only that was stable, but a place that taught me life skills, things that I'd be honest with you, and I told my dad this a few years ago. I didn't understand some of the life skills he was teaching me until I became a parent. Once I
Mm.
became a parent, it was like I went back to him and I said, I need to say thank you because you taught me what it meant to serve and love my family well. And that was never something I had seen before in the way both my parents loved Jesus. My dad was a pastor. My mom was in ministry as well. And so it was laid this foundation of faith that I hadn't seen before. And it provided a space of healing and redemption when it came to I had a hatred for women because of the life and the abuse that I'd went through. And I had no concept of what it meant to have respect for men because my biological father was never present. And so transitioning from place to place, then ending up at the farm was my safe haven after I got through the fear of feeling like there was someone going to pop out of the cornfields, there was some peace that came with looking up and seeing the stars at night.
Oh, I love that. What did your parents do that made a difference in your life? I mean, you talked about a little bit with, teaching you those life skills, but I know as an adoptive mom, I want to know like what is the one thing I could do or that I should be doing that will help bring my children to healing? Anything that you can think, anything in addition to what you've already said that, your parents did that really made a difference?
Yeah, choosing me in the chaos is hard. And my mom and my dad did that multiple times. Being consistent in their communication, I believe, was a huge impact for me because I'd never seen that before. Really loving me through my mess, but also um, there was a huge thing that I experienced with them, which was the exposure to Jesus. I didn't know what that looked like or what was going on. All I saw was my mom and dad would have ministry nights, and we would have like 40 people at our house, and my house was not that big, just so you know. And so she went and bought all these metal chairs, and we would sit outside and just talk about life and a group of people and eat. I remember eating Doritos and drinking sodas and iced teas. That was just we just sat outside and pizza rolls from back in the day, and just a huge gift and opportunity to love unconditionally, uh, to see past the trauma and pain, not forgetting it. There's a difference. It is acknowledging the past, acknowledging the pain, and moving forward. Um, and then uh, one of the things that I believe my parents did, and now I have understanding of, there is a poem that talks about um, being prophets of a future not our own. And part of that poem breaks down and talks about the fact that we are the workers, not the messiahs.
Mhm.
And we are planting seeds and tilling a garden that is not ours to know how it grows. And my mom and my dad did an amazing job of not controlling or not having their identity based off of my success or lack thereof, or having their identity as parents being based off of what was going on within me. But instead, they said, we're just going to choose to love you and trust in the Lord out of that, and trust in Him out of that. And that is one of the greatest gifts that I received, was having a space where they just chose to love me and let God do the rest.
I love that. Um, as an adopted mom myself, my husband and I, we had three biological children when we welcomed an 8-year-old little girl who was a relative to us into our family. We eventually adopted her, but we made so many mistakes because we didn't understand trauma. Wasn't like we had even taken a foster parent training class, none of that. And not knowing about trauma, only knowing traditional parenting methods, which did not work and really caused further harm until we were able to learn and do better. And thankfully, over the years, we did learn and have a great relationship with our daughter now, who's in her 30s. Was there anything that your adoptive parents did that maybe now looking back, you would tell foster and adoptive parents today, do not do this?
That identity aspect is super important. Transracial and adoption is a huge thing within the community. There's just a huge gap there, and not just that, but everyone comes from different cultures. If there was one thing that I could express to my parents, and I've shared with them before, so this is not new information. My mom will watch this and she'll call me. So, is I think it's super important for people to have cultural understanding of where everyone comes from. um, Taking the time to be intentional is super important. There are some times where it says, well, you need to now transition to my culture and be who we are. When the harsh part of that is when that child looks in the mirror, they're going to see the type of parents, or see the parents that were before them. I look Nothing like my biological mama lets me know that I look a lot like my biological dad. And there was so much culturally that I wrestled with being a young black man, that I wish my parents would have helped me walk through. Now there's things that they wouldn't have been able, but exposing me to people who could have helped me culturally. And I think that's the same for anyone, regardless of where they come from. If you have someone who's from the country and they're going to be in the city, there's their part of their identity is wrapped in, being outside, experiencing nature, doing those sorts of things. So you want to make sure that you are taking the intentional time to get to know the culture of the kids that you are bringing into your home. And then remember, at the end of the day, if a child says they need more, it is not a reflection of you as a parent. And what I mean by that, there was a time frame I reconnected with my godmother later on in life, probably, you know, 10 to 15 years after I had left her home. And and I remember sharing with mom about being so excited to be able to have this part chapter of my life that was just black space.
Mm.
And I remember my mom saying, "Well, we did the best that we could do for you." And I was like, "Mom, this is not a reflection. That space in my life isn't because you failed me."
Right.
Instead, it's say, "Hey, will you step in and help me transition and understanding?" When I look in the mirror, when I look at Reuben Watson, I'm able to see my God family because that's part of who I am. I no longer want to feel shame and embarrassment for my features and what I look like in the person that's a part of who I am. And so, if I had to share anything about to my parents, but also to individual other parents, hey, be sensitive and mindful that kids are coming from different places, and never say things like "I don't see color." Never say things like, um, those things don't really matter, because what you're doing is you are laying a foundation that says suppress who you are instead of walking in how the Lord has made you. We want to be sure that we're highlighting and providing a space for children to feel that they are beautifully and wonderfully made, regardless of their background, and what who they are isn't an accident, but it's how the Lord determined them to be.
I love that. Amen to that. That is so, so important. Cultural, my husband and I, we have four children that we adopted from Ukraine. So while our skin color is the same, they still came from a different culture, and we tried to honor that with, making sure I learned Ukrainian recipes. My one daughter has to have every year on her birthday, she has to have borscht, which is a soup that was common in Ukraine. I bought a lot of Christmas decorations and different things while we were in that country and brought them home. And we focus on those things. We decorate our home. We talk about Ukraine. We just introduced it, and some of our kids grabbed onto that, and some of them were younger, and it didn't, they were too little to even remember Ukraine. But so important to be able to, we can't forget about how our, the Lord created each one of our kids, and their differences, and their cultures, and everything about them. We need to honor that, right? Because every one of our kids are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we need to be able to honor that, and that is so important. And I love that's such good advice, because it's so important for our parents that are listening. So I wanted to ask you a little bit, because I know you came to the Lord. At what age did you really begin walking with the Lord and find that healing?
So, going into college, I would have told you I was a believer, but that's because my parents, I did all the Jesus things. I did the summer camps, I did the Bible studies, but it very much was a let's check a box off, um, and didn't have full understanding of what Christ had actually done for me on the cross. When I went to college, I went to school to play football, and how we got there is a whole another story. But the Lord ordained some things for me to be able to get there. And the end of the summer, the beginning of the first semester, one of my best friends committed suicide,
Mm.
and that placed me in a situation where all the things as a kid, I kind of just suppressed some of the anger and rage. My identity began to be wrapped up in sports, and acceptance and girl. Like, it was all the things that normal teenage boys wrestle with layers of do I belong? Do I matter? Coming from where I'm from, I wasn't, because I was black in a predominantly white area, I wasn't allowed to date girls, where I'm from. Like it was not allowed. Parents did not allow interracial things. And so there were parts of my life that I was still filled with that shame, guilt, and shame and defeat of when I looked in the mirror, I wasn't accepted by the people around me. And so when you fast forward to going into college, I went through an identity crisis. And part of that was because when I was going to play football, it was part of who I was. And one of the things that ended up happening was I quit that first semester of college. I stopped going to class because I went into a deep depression. Everything, all those identity things that I wrestled with, all came back up. I would have told you they were dealt with, but they weren't. The idea of belonging, the idea of feeling like I mattered, the idea of feeling like I had worth, all of that became evident that I still felt the same way I did as that infant, as that toddler, as that child that went into foster care and attempted to take his own life. The end of that first semester of college, I attempted suicide, and that was kind of the main focus of, once again, I don't matter to anyone.
Mm.
I couldn't even, and from a value standpoint, it was the guy that committed suicide. I had talked to him maybe 3 to 4 days prior, and it was, now this is my fault. Once again, I can't be dependent on. I don't have value and worth to the people around me. That was couldn't be any further from the truth, from the reality of what was going on. And sure enough, after that, what ended up happening for me was there was a group of people that I started to hang out with, just play basketball with, in college, and they invited me to a summer, winter conference. And there at this conference, I was there, but I was really there because I was chasing a girl, and that's really all all that it was about. But the Lord used that because at that conference, I got to experience for the first time the love of the cross. And
Mm.
not just in the way that the foundation had been laid for me, where I was loved by my parents and I was loved by people around me in some capacity. I was listening to the sermon, and the literal phrase that was used was God was calling out and saying, "You are mine." And
Mm.
that wasn't a coincidence that the same language that my mom used, maybe 10 years prior, was not 10 years prior, but 3 years prior, the same language that was used about, hey, the story of adoption for you and the Watson family is a foreshadowing for great adoption to come. And so around 19 is when I came to know the Lord. I learned that I was loved in ways I couldn't imagine. I was cared for in ways that I couldn't fathom. And not just that, but he was able to see me for who I was.
Sandra Flach, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond, invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets neurobehavioral model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphans.ny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphans.ny.org/hope-community.
So you were 19 when you really committed your life to Christ. What changed after that?
That was the beginning of as you probably know, a sanctification process for me. There was a justification for sure, immediate of, okay, I now know I'm forgiven of my sin. But the redemptive process was just beginning. There was a surgery that began at that time, and there were things that were happening that I was completely unaware of. Um, I'd never gone to therapy. I'd never really seen any aspect of that part of my life from a redemption standpoint. It was kind of just, stuff happens, people go through hard things. And I began to learn that's not the norm. The life that I experienced was not normal. And the whole identity that I had to completely change. So I was living my life for myself in college in a lot of ways, and even after becoming a believer, I was on fire for the Lord as a lot of people start out, and but there's a lot of self-righteousness that came with that. There was a lot of brokenness that came with how I was treating others and things that were happening in my life because it was just at that point, it was like reckless pursuit. I want to be able to love Jesus. And there were little moments and things that were happening. But to be honest with you, I got married pretty early on in college and my going into my junior, senior year. And in hindsight, that was definitely a choice. I love my wife very much. But we were so young and we had not even really begun understanding of who we were. And so all those things that I understood that I was the Lord's and I belonged to Him. But what I didn't understand was what cloak that I could put on and what the one that He'd given me, the yoke that I'd been carrying my whole life was no longer mine, that I could give it to Him, that He would trade me, and that the weight of the cross, which I for sure, you pick and you carry your cross daily, but not understanding the weight of His cross and what that meant for my life. And so being able to right after becoming a believer, it was a reckless, in a positive way, pursuit of Jesus, being discipled and chasing the Lord. But also, the Lord began peeling back and knocking down doors in rooms that I had never even seen, and began this redemption process where I thought that I was a sinner. I knew that I was a sinner, but the depth of my sin I had no concept of. And then I got married, and
And that'll surely show you.
that will show you a lot of things. And that was kind of my reality and what I got to experience and what life was like during that time frame.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So you married, now you're a dad. You have two little girls, is that right?
I do. My beautiful girls, my Monty Grace and my Zariah Brielle, 6 and 2. Outside of my salvation and outside of my bride, my girls are the greatest gift. The Lord knew that I did not need boys, at least at first, because they have softened my heart. And when you talk about love and care, I did not know what it meant to be gentle in the way that I get to be with my girls and laying the foundation of confidence and belief in themselves has really been redemptive for me and for my wife as well, as she's been through her own trauma and pain growing up.
Oh, I love that. Again, that redemption story. Reuben, what is your relationship like today with your adoptive parents?
Oh, it's great. Grandma and Grandpa, it has been awesome to be able to relive a different life with them. Um, I'm very thankful you asked that question because I've done a podcast or two, and a lot of times the concentration goes into just my childhood. And that is a portion of my story. Now, on the other side, what has been so beautiful, even in part of my new role here recently, is I'm now getting to minister to my parents and I'm
Mhm.
getting to love and care for them in ways that I wasn't able to do before. And I'm getting to shower them with care and compassion in ways that I didn't have understanding. And like I said, like with my dad, um, I didn't understand what his sacrifice was until after I became a parent and was trying to work while not getting any sleep, while trying to still love and my wife well. My dad's a truck driver and a farmer. He picks two challenging positions. Um, but my dad, growing up, never missed a football game. Went to as many basketball games as possible. Went to my track meets. I didn't understand the sacrifice that he was doing while doing it. It was kind of like, of course, he's going to be there. It was assumed. But then I got to be up to 2 to 3 a.m. taking care of my kids, and then I had to get up at 6 a.m. and go to work. And I had to then come home and cook and clean and then go to sleep at maybe 11 because it's the only time I get to spend with my wife. And then getting up once again at 2 or 3 a.m. and repeating. And I remember the exhaustion I had. And then I said, how much did that man love me?
Mm.
That he was getting up at 2 a.m. to drive a truck, was gone until 1 or 2, was coming working on the farm, and then was putting on his Logan County Cougar sweatshirt and cheering me on while I played football.
Mm.
And now have better understanding of my dad and my mom and their sacrifices. Being a parent has provided a healthy space for us to love and care for one another in a very special way. Um, and now, because of that, I get to be a part of sharing my life from the lens of my parents through their eyes. And it's provided this space of healing and redemption. And my babies love the farm.
Mm.
My dad, I remember growing up, he didn't tell me he loved me until I was heading off to college, and he wrote a letter to me and put it in my stuff as I was getting ready to leave and go to college. And I didn't understand that, I was confused by that. But he was a hardened man who had just been through a lot of difficult things and trauma in himself. And then he met my wife, Emily, and he told her he loved her within like 2 months. And, uh, but it was so beautiful because that was healing that was taking place in him.
Mm.
And now I get to see this man, this mountain of a man, light up when he sees my babies. And the same for my mom. Get to see her light up when she sees her grandbabies. And it's a beautiful gift. Once again, that same redemptive process, not just for me, but a redemptive process for them. My mom shared with me a couple weeks ago because I was talking to her about, hey, people are being inspired by your love for me, and they're being challenged, but also uh, you've provided an aspect of hope for them. And she's like, "Oh, that's wonderful." And she said, "Ruben, I need to share something. I don't know if we ever told you this, but as much as we brought you healing, you brought us healing,
Mm.
and which was a great gift to be able to hear that from my mom."
Yeah. Yeah, and as an adopted mom myself, I can attest to that. I mean, I feel like the Lord has done such a work in me and a healing in me in the process of being an adoptive parent, and really also even understanding, my spiritual adoption as a child of God. It just the way that being an adoptive parent, that's such a reflection. Adoption is such a reflection. The physical adoption of children is such a reflection of God's adoption of us. So just the growth, in my own life and in my faith, and the healing that I received along the way is that can't be understated as well. And it's not just the children who are healed and transformed, but it is part of our sanctification process too, the parents walking through this. So I love that part of your story too. Reuben, you chose the verse that we opened the show with. I'll read it again. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. What does 2 Corinthians 12:9 mean to you?
The whole chapter of 2 Corinthians 12 for me is a wonderful reminder of my scars and my pain have a beautiful purpose.
Mm.
Earlier in that passage, uh, Paul is begging for a thorn in his side to be removed. And he asks 3 times. And he's begging because it's just in his flesh a reminder of difficulty and things and challenges of sin, or who he is without Jesus, without God. And for me, that passage gives me hope because it's not just a thorn in my side, but it's a reminder who I am without him. And it's a beautiful reminder of who I am with him. that my weakness ultimately is some of my greatest strength because I do not have to be reliant on Reuben.
Mm.
Not only that, but I shouldn't be reliant. Um, my strength comes in my weakness because my strength comes from not me, but him in me. And that is a fountain that does not run dry.
Mm.
And so being able to stay in a place where I'm reminded and I can boast in my weaknesses. Today's a wonderful example of that, talking about my brokenness and the chaos that I've caused and the pain that I've caused others and things that have resulted in challenges in my life and scars of my past. I'm getting to boast of my weakness and who I am. But however more is his love
Mm.
that he would choose a little one like me and that he knew when the earth was created, every hair on my head, every scar that I have on my face from the abuse that I experienced, the wounds on my body, and would say, "You are mine." And not just that, but we're going to utilize your story for my glory. What strength is that? That the one who can hold all the water in the palm of his hand says, "I choose you." Not that you earned it, not that you did anything that where you deserved it, but it's only because of my love. And
Mm.
there's freedom found in boasting in my weakness, um, and talking through my weakness because I get to find strength and reliance in all that he is and all that he's done. And so that 2 Corinthians 12:9 is a passage of my story. My favorite hymn is just this continuous reminder of blessed assurance.
Mm.
And I feel that that 2 Corinthians 12:9 for me is just a passage that has the same themes of blessed assurance of this is my story, this is my song, praise my Savior all the day long. My story is one of trauma and pain, but I can praise my Savior for the fact that He carried me and kept me in the moments of my weakness, which I'm just as weak now as I was as that infant who was once born calling out for his mother.
Powerful. And God uses your story and your healing and your redemption, because now in the work that you're doing, which glorifies the Lord as well. So tell us about your work. You're Director of Unity in Action at the Lexington Leadership Foundation. Tell us about that.
So it's like you said, it's a once again the same continued theme of redemption
Yes.
within my life. Now, as a director of Union Action, I get the opportunity to make connections and build bridges. My job is to connect, unify, and mobilize the community to solve the foster care crisis within the Commonwealth of the state of Kentucky, connecting churches to resources, unifying networks of support, and mobilizing the commerce or business community collectively together for one cause and one mission, which is providing homes and safe places for children. And that's what I get to do every day. I get to minister to those around me, church leadership, foster families, foster children, and providing a lane and a pathway for people of faith and goodwill to work together to solve this crisis.
Yeah, it's an incredible organization, the Lexington Leadership Foundation, doing incredible work there, in Lexington, Kentucky, and your work with just impacting the foster care system in the state of Kentucky. Reuben, what is the website in case our listeners are interested in learning more about Lexington Leadership Foundation and the work you're doing? What is the website where they can learn more?
So you can go to www.lexingtonleadershipfoundation.com, and then you can also go to Unity in Action, and you can look it up as well. Within the work that we're doing, there's a wonderful space where you can go through and look at all the great work that we're doing. Within the Leadership Foundation, we're unique from the standpoint of we're not just one organization that does work like this. And the initiative that I get to be a part of isn't just for one specific initiative. We have five other initiatives that are about serving and loving the community well. And that provides a really cool space. Once again, it's Lexington Leadership Foundation if you're researching it, and it's lexlf.org. And so you're wanting to dive in, but if you Google it, you'll find us. And so don't worry if you forget. And same for Unity in Action. But there is a healthy space of caring for fathers in the community that are fighting for their children. There's a really cool space of the Amachi mentorship program, which is serving children who have been impacted by parents of incarceration. We've got an urban and youth impacts program here that serves and loves. We have a theater program. We have all the above where we go through and we care for missions with Mission Increase. And we have a prayer room that is designated for praying for our city. We believe that we can imagine a city where God will be glorified, but also we believe in the redeeming grace of God for our city, that one day Lexington will be a city for God. And that is the work that we get to do and how we get to serve and love others well here.
Love it. So we will put a link in the show notes so that our listeners can click and find that very easily and learn more. Incredible work that you are doing there in Lexington, Kentucky. Reuben, how would our listeners connect with you? Do you have social media?
I do. I do. I have social media. You can find me at Reuben.Watson. Whether that's on Facebook or Instagram, you will see my beautiful babies as a part of all the things that are going on. And then if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out, you can contact me at rwatson, WATSON, at lexlf.org. And so I want to make sure that there's a space where you can contact me. I am an open book when it comes to serving and loving. And I think there's a space for people to chime in and talk. I want to make sure there's a space for people to know they can reach out. And if there's an invitation to be a part of some of the great work other people are doing, I for sure want to provide a space for that as well.
Yeah, love that. We will make sure we put your contact information in the show notes as well. So you doing such amazing work, mentoring and empowering others. You're such an inspiration, Reuben, not just for youth, but again, for us foster and adoptive parents. So as we close out, would you offer us some words of encouragement as, as parents who are facing the challenges of raising kids from hard places?
Um, when you talk about the foster and adoption space, um, I think there's once again a pleasant reminder that you are a prophet of a future not your own. And I think that's something that's super important. And what I mean by that is, once again, you're being a part of laying the foundation, and there's freedom that comes with that. There's freedom with the fact that you're not having to carry the load of whether or not a child's going to make every right decision, whether a child's going to cause pain and trauma at some point in time. You are freed from that because the Savior that I believe in, and many of your listeners may also as well, there's something so beautiful because the one thing that you could not provide was your salvation. And if he can do that, what else can't he do? There is nothing that is too big for him. There's no story that's beyond redemption. There's no child that's beyond his grace. Um, and if you think, well, I don't know, there's some tough ones. I was one of those kids. I was one of those kids that you would say, I don't know if there's hope for him. But there was because of Jesus. And so if I was leaving a letter of encouragement, as once again going to the Corinthians, for, my encouragement would be you are freed from the weight of parenting. You are freed from the weight of what you determine as failure or success. You can breathe in the space of healing and redemption and knowing that God has got you and the children that you have and that you are caring for. You're only planting seeds for the Lord to grow them in the future. And there's ultimate freedom because once again, you are not enough as a parent. That may feel like a negative, but it's not because there is someone who is enough. And that is super important to be seen and to be heard and hopefully provide some encouragement. You're doing a great job. You are loving and caring well. Be freed from the worldly expectations and rejoice in what the Lord has given you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Reuben, for those words and for sharing your story with us. You've given us so much hope on our parenting journey today, and we just thank you again for being with us.
Yeah, no, once again, thank you for the gift of today. Um, I've had a long few weeks and some things that have just been difficult for me. And today was a beautiful reminder of what God has done for me, and I rejoice in that. And so thank you.
And thank you for listening to this Foster Care Month edition of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast. I hope you were inspired and encouraged by my conversation with Reuben Watson today. I know I was blessed. I'm sure you were too. Not only do we want to give you inspiration and encouragement through the show, but also want to give you resources to further equip you for your parenting journey. So in addition to online and in-person training and workshops, if you're raising kids with prenatal substance exposure, you will want to seriously consider joining the Hope for the FASD Journey online support group. And of course, if you're interested in more of a personalized one-on-one approach, I also do online FASD parent coaching. So you can learn more about all of our resources at justicefororphansny.org. Just click on Adoption and Foster Care Journey on the homepage. Of course, there is a link in the show notes to that, as well as the links where you can find Reuben Watson online. Please subscribe and follow this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. You can watch the video version on YouTube at the Justice for Orphans YouTube channel. Leave us a review if you're listening on Apple, and make sure that you subscribe, because when you do, it makes it easier for other parents to find and engage and become encouraged and equipped as well. So again, find and follow us on social media, the Adoption and Foster Care Journey. We have our own Instagram page, our own Facebook page. Would love to engage with you there as well. So ways we can stay connected until next time. And I am grateful that you spent your valuable time with me today. I am thrilled to have you along for the journey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans, and check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.